Hey guys, welcome back to the shop, and thanks for tuning in. I've got a video for you today that some of you guys have been asking for and waiting on for quite a while. It seems to be a common thing on this channel. I get to things when I can, but there's always something to do. So today we're going to do a front one-piece axle boot replacement. I think I can talk all right. I could have just done the zipper boots to get this thing, done out of the shop easy and quick, but the right way to do one of these trucks, as far as what I've always told people, is if you're going to do it, put the one-piece boots on. The zipper boots were a field expedient repair. They were not meant to be a permanent thing, and they really don't last. They don't hold up like the one-piece boots do. So yes, it's more work, but it's also kind of part of maintenance. You should be going in the knuckle, checking things, greasing. So without further ado, let me show you what we've got here. We already have the rim and tire off. You really don't need to see me pull a rim and tire. It's kind of like the most basic of the basics. So I've saved you that, and we're going to start from there. Now this is the driver's side. Passenger side is going to be pretty much exactly the same. The only thing is you don't have steering arm here. You've instead just got a cap, which is, there's no discernible difference. Okay, so I'm going to put you in the holder here, right on top of my bucket of red grease, which we're going to use to pack the knuckle. And I will probably do this video in a two-part, a tear down on one, and a replacement and such on the next. But we'll just see how this goes, how long it takes. And let me put you in this holder here, and I may have to find a better spot for you, but we're going to start here and just see what we get and how it goes. Okay, so first of all, this really shouldn't take a whole lot of tools. We've got our 8.3 inch hub socket down here and our breaker bar just out of sight of you guys. We've got the 3/8 impact with a 3/4 inch socket and a 7/8 socket. We've got our big screwdriver, multi-purpose, got our brass drift, and we've got our big hammer. Now we are going to need a couple of other tools, but since the sizes on certain fasteners vary from truck to truck, I've got to get inside first and see which ones they are. So we're going to take our hubcap off. And since I've already shown you guys how to service the hubs on these before on the front, we're not really going to go over that much. But the nice thing about this is it's already been serviced by me, so I don't really have to go through and clean out all the bearings and hub cavity and all that shit and redo that. I've just got to make sure I don't get any grit into the bearings and all while I've got my part. Got a suction on it, which is good. Look how nice and fresh that grease is. Yeah. So we're going to stick this over here well out of the way. And we have got to get our blue rags. Where is the frame right now? Can you see? Yeah, you can kind of see this, huh? We put a clean blue rag down, kind of up and out of the way. That's where our hub nuts and all are going to get set. So we don't get any dirt on them. And right there is one lock tab. Here's the other on the other side. I try not to bend them any more than I really have to. That way you can kind of reuse them sometimes. It kind of sucks doing this on a day that it's like below 70 degrees. because the grease is a lot more tacky and unruly. But you know, I've only got so much time, so I can't wait around for a 70-degree day in the middle of winter, even though I know there'll be one sometime soon. All right, now the inner nut. I need a second towel here. Yeah, grease is super tacky. Really, all over my boot. All over both of my boots. Well, these boots are a few years old anyway. I guess it's whatever. Work boots. And now you saw that it wasn't really tight. I didn't have to break it loose. That's how it should be after it's broken in. You shouldn't have to break the inner one loose. Okay. If you got to break your inner nut loose, then it was too tight to begin with, and it was set to burn up. So, well, your outer bearing out. Set it down on top of our other stuff. Now, once again, you know, if you haven't done this, if you're just going through the hubs and you're going to repack your hub bearing and your steering knuckle, and you're going to you know, change the boot all at the same time, you don't really have to worry about keeping all this clean like I am, because you're going to repack it anyway. But still looks good. Now, I forgot I need 9/16. Let's see what you can see. Get a little closer. Okay. Now you're going to use an extension with a shallow 9/16, because you've got to get up here on these nuts. Behind the spring. Only the two, and they do have lock washers behind them. They look like that, little star washers. And we're taking all these nuts off because this whole brake backing plate's coming off. Don't lose them. Normally I put these all in a magnetic tray, but I don't have any that are free right now. They're full of stuff, so. I'm just having to make sure that I keep them all on the metal drip tray. Collect all the lock washers. Now, something important to note when you are taking this apart, it's actually more important when you put it back together. Down here at the bottom, you see that gap right there? That has to be orientated down. If you place that up here on the side or on the top or off, can it off, whatever, it's not cool, because what that is the escape. That is the drain for water or liquefied grease or whatever you may have, you may have that is trying to come out of this dust boot right here. You want to allow it to get out through here so it doesn't get on your brake shoes, at least not as much. That's what that gap is for. So when you put it back together, make sure that gap's on the bottom. All right, now you remove your stiffening plate. It's a usually comes right off, but not always. This plate is also directional. You'll notice it's got two flats on it. They go up, the little small bump in the center straight up. If you try to put it on otherwise, usually they won't go. They're kind of a pain in the ass anyway to begin with. So, all right, now your entire brake vacuum plate assembly is going to come off. And what you're going to do is you're going to set it on top of your 5-gallon bucket that you had conveniently placed over here before, and you're going to lean it up against the leaf spring there. So let me move some of this shit out of my way, and we'll do that. Well, hang on. First of all, you have to remove the that right there. You've got to pull that brake line retainer off. Just unhook the spring from the metal tab there. That way you have the slack to actually do it. So, do that real quick. And then the whole vacuum plate comes off. Just like that. Now you can do something else with it if you want. You can use a piece of wire to hang it up or whatever, but bear in mind it is heavy. So if you're going to tie it up with wire, use good strong wire like an actual good coat hanger, and tie it up well, because you don't want that falling off and hurting you, and you don't want it falling off and tearing the brake line off, or kinking the steel line or anything like that. So keep that in mind. Yeah, I always just lean it up over there. You can even you can look right above it there. You can tie it up to that hanger right there if you want, but I don't. I just set it like that, and generally I don't have any issues. So back to the hub and spindle here. This is all one piece assembly. Your axle shaft goes through the middle of the spindle, and you don't even have to take the inner bearing off, as you can see. So the studs are all threaded into the knuckle, and the spindle will come straight off of that. So usually they don't give you too much of a problem coming off, but every once in a while they will really fight you. So shit. Let me take a break because somebody's home. I will be right back with you. Good thing I've learned to edit videos. All right, guys, we are back. Sorry for the little delay there, but groceries had to be carried in. So, let's see if we can get this spindle off. And this spindle, you can tell, has not been off in a very long time. The paint is not broken. So, let's just try a couple of taps here and there. Sometimes, if it won't come loose easy, just hit the end of it or the side of it with a good soft deadbolt hammer. You don't want to damage the threads. See it came loose already? So, where Do this. Okay, now we're gonna take our screwdriver, wipe it off again. We're gonna try to use this to separate it, which it is. Now, something to note, on the front axle, if you have a wheel bearing go bad and it damages the spindle and somehow you don't lose a wheel and die, you can replace the spindle. This is just, it's a unit. You bolt a new one on, okay? On the rear axles, it's not the same way. Now when you take your drum and all off and you look, you're gonna see it's got the same pattern around it like this, and it's got rivets in it, hot rivets. That's just how they attached the brake backing plate. It is not a separate spindle assembly like this that's riveted on. What it is, it's just a solid flange that's shaped like this, and it's a piece of the axle tube. So it's not serviceable, it's not repairable, not replaceable like this. So if you lose a rear wheel bearing, it's much worse than if you lose a front as far as the repair is concerned, if you survive the incident. So obviously more important to make sure that your rear axle bearings are in good condition. I mean, it's important anyway. A wheel bearing's a wheel bearing, front or rear, but you know, I think you understand what I'm getting at, hopefully. You don't want to lose a wheel bearing regardless, but at least the front you can fix without having to replace the whole axle. All right, now, look at that. Yummy. That's all got to come off. All that has to come out of there because that's nasty. And we got to repack it all in there with fresh grease. So that is why I have this drain pan, which you can't see because it's out of frame. It's down below you. But this is always the part I don't like because now I have to get all nasty. I mean, it's unavoidable. It's what you sign up for when you do this job, but it doesn't mean I have to like it. So to begin with, I'm just going to take a rag and scoop the peanut butter off of that spindle best I can. And it, I mean, it's not super sticky because it's old. It's kind of like a fresh dog turd, but still, it's nasty. It's GAA, Grease, Artillery, and Automotive. And it is, it's animal fat based. It is lard based, so, or tallow based rather. So that's why it degrades the way it does and gets hard over time. So now, when you're doing this, if you're going to reuse another tallow-based grease, it's not super important to get it spotless. But if you're going to use a lithium or moly type grease like this red number 2 grease is that I use, you have to get all this out and get it clean, because the lithium and the base chemicals or the base material of the GAA react badly to each other, and they can cause all kinds of nasty corrosion and stuff. So but once you have made the conversion from the old tallow based grease to the lithium, you've got a lot better, longer lasting, tougher, better protecting grease all around. Now, the GAA the military used just because it's cheap, and you know, the vehicles get serviced often, so it doesn't have to really protect the best or last the longest. It doesn't matter, is it's supposed to get changed out at least once a year on an annual service. So pull the shaft out. You see, this is a U-joint style, which is good. I thought this truck might have been an earlier truck, which would have had a ball and claw joint, which, I mean, they're okay, but they're not as strong. And they kind of fall apart, and when you take them out, you know, then they can be a pain to get back together. Anyway, a large part of this job is just the cleanup. It's not necessarily anything complicated. It's just a lot of nasty cleaning. So anyway, and since I've had this discussion with many people before, and so many people don't understand or don't believe me, I'll take this opportunity to tell you that these knuckles, even with the U-joint style axles, absolutely 100% have to be repacked with grease. You cannot run the inside of this knuckle dry. There's a lot of people that say it. There's a lot of people that are wrong. And I will explain to you why. These U-joints are not like normal U-joints where they've got a seal on each cap. These caps are not sealed. These caps have this thing that looks like a seal right here. All that is a steel lip retainer to keep the needle bearings in. It does not keep grease in. It does not keep water out. It doesn't keep anything anywhere except keeping the needles in the cap. So what happens is when this U-joint and axle is turned like this and it is traveling through this grease bath, it actually creates a vortex of grease in this knuckle that pushes grease into the caps, and it's really cool to see it. And you can see it when you repack this knuckle with grease, and you stick the shaft in there, and then you pack grease in around the shaft, and you turn it and you spin it. You can see the way the grease and the ears of the shaft itself pushes the grease into the caps. It's really cool to see. Not only that, but if you were to have a sealed U-joint in here, which you can get aftermarket U-joints that have a seal and replace these U-joints, and then you don't have to worry about, you know, the lack of grease to the needle bearings and all. But there's another couple of things. If you look right here, that shiny silver surface in the center, that is a thrust bearing surface. And on the end of the shaft right here, which I can see is missing, there's supposed to be a thrust bearing, a thrust washer. It is not present. That's concerning. But there is one on the back. You see this right here? That's not a lip on the back of the shaft. That is a steel thrust washer. And that rides against the inner bearing, or not bearing, but a seal retainer. The seal retainer on the inside is a thrust bearing surface, and the thrust washer here is a bearing surface. So without the thrust washers where they're supposed to be, you end up with excess end play of the shaft in and out. And what that can do is pull the splines of your shaft back out of the cap far enough when it's under load that it ends up shearing the splines on the shaft or in the cap. And not only that, but with the U-joint being out of center in the radius of the turn that the knuckle is at, it can bind the U-joint and break it very quickly and easily. So you definitely want to lubricate all of your thrust surfaces in here. It's got to be greased, guys. And this the grease from your, that's kind of out of frame, huh? The grease from your upper and lower kingpins, when you grease them, it pushes through the kingpins and comes into the knuckle anyway. So it's just, you know, I've had this discussion with plenty of people on forums and stuff, and there's so many people that insist, oh, you don't need that. And well, yeah, I'm sorry, but you do. You have to grease the inside of the knuckle. No ifs, ands, or buts. I don't care what style shaft you have. I don't care if you replace the U-joint with a greasable kind. It doesn't matter. You have to grease the knuckle. So there endeth the lesson. And yes, you know, the grease, it will add to the degradation of the rubber of the boots over time. You know, that's just a fact of life. When you put rubber in contact with petroleum, eventually it's going to degrade it. It's going to deteriorate it. That's a better word, huh? If you have one of these trucks, a deuce and a half, and you're under the impression that you're going to be able to have it and just do the boots once or never do the boots, or that it doesn't matter, you may want to rethink your whole methodology there, because it's wrong. Boots are something you're going to do more than once if you plan on having the truck for any length of time. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because like I said, you need to get in here and make sure that you're, you know, everything's in good condition. So like your inner seal in there, if it starts leaking, it's going to wash this grease out and it'll drip out at the bottom, that channel, and then you'll have a lack of lubrication, which I think I just thoroughly covered, and things will wear, and the oil will not take the place of the grease. So it's such a pain in the ass getting all this stuff cleaned. It's not bad when you've already converted it to lithium grease, and you're just kind of like making sure you get all the dirty grease out, or you know, the discolored grease, and you're putting new in. But when you actually have to get all of the old grease out, it takes forever. See, it's at this point that I would I'd kick myself for not just putting zipper boots on this. And that's why most people do. You know, people just want to get it done, get it over with. They don't want to do all this cleanup and get nasty. And but number one, this truck is going to another friend. He's paying for the labor on this, which is kind of a rarity for me. You know, most people want me to just help them with things, and you know, do me a favor and I'll help you with this. And so it's nice to make a little bit of money doing this for once, and it gives me the opportunity to show you how this job needs to be done, because you guys have been waiting on this, some of you, for a long time. Some of you since, I think, just shortly after I started this channel. I know I've had people asking me to do a video on front axle boots. Long time. Plenty of people. Been asked multiple times. So I don't regret having to do it. It just sucks that I have to do it. See, I haven't had to do the ones on my truck in several years. If you use a good quality boot, and those can be kind of hard to find these days. Use a good quality boot, and you know, don't overpack the knuckle. You know, put enough grease in to lubricate it properly, and not enough to blow the boot when you turn it. If you overpack it, you will. The first time you turn the wheel, you'll blow the boot. So I will cover that as well. But use a good quality boot. Big Mike's, or there's a couple other companies that carry good boots. Heavy duty rubber ones, or nitrile, or hybrid rubber, if you see something like that, that is the ones you want. You don't want the light duty silicone. There's some silicone boots that you can get, take them out of the package, and you can do this and they'll tear. And there's all kinds of stuff out there, so just keep that in mind. Most silicone boots are good, because they're the ones that that they had on the M35A3s, those are long since gone. So they're no longer available. And those were the only reasonable quality silicone boots that I know of. I think they were like an aqua green color. And I'm not, you know, all those boots that are like red or neon green or blue that the mud truck community uses and stuff. Usually those boots are kind of junk. They're garbage. Because the mud truck guys, most of them don't know anything about these axles really to speak of. And most of them don't care anyway. You know, I know a lot of them I've talked to don't even run boots. So they run it literally till the wheel falls off, and then they'll buy another axle because I don't know. Some people have more money than sense, I'll just put it that way. And what I'm using here this is a non-chlorinated brake cleaner. It doesn't matter to me whether you use chlorinated or not. I buy whatever's cheap. I don't pay over $2 a can for brake cleaner. And I tell them that when I buy it. I go into Advance, I tell them, look, I need a case of brake cleaner. I'm not paying over $2 a can. What can you do? And I'll end up usually getting it for $2.20 a can. They may not always tell you, but they always can fudge the price a little. You know, they'll have a 2-for-1, buy one, get one, or something like that, and they can work with you on the price. But don't buy this stuff at $4 or $5 a can because it's a ripoff. Now I know somebody's going to say, well, what about the grease that's up in the U-joint caps? You can't get that out. That's true. You do your best to get it off from around the cap right here. Hopefully you can see that. And the rest just is what it is. The lithium grease will force it out, and a little bit being in there is not going to destroy anything. It's not the best, but I mean, you can go ahead and you can take the U-joints out and take all the needle bearings out, clean it up. You can go into that much detail if you want to. I don't, the years of doing this, I have not found that to ever be necessary. So, like I said, it's probably been 5 years since I first converted mine over to lithium grease from the GAA. It was completely untouched, unserviced when I got mine. And I've been through the knuckles on mine several times, and I've not seen any negative effects of not getting all the grease out of the needle bearings. I think the first time I had to go and change the boots again, when I changed the grease out of the knuckles again there, all the other grease was in there with it, had been forced out. So this is something, I mean, even if you're not changing the boot, you should plan on going and servicing the knuckle. At least just pulling the shaft out and scooping the excess grease out with your hand, and putting new grease in. Generally, you know, in military service, the practice was, and the procedure was, to do that once a year. Now that was Uncle Sam having unlimited funds and soldiers sitting around, you know, doing whatever they're told because they have to. So you don't necessarily have to do the same, but just FYI, you know, kind of that sort of thing. Now what do I do with the shaft shit? I generally have some sawhorses to set the shaft on, but they're out there and got stuff on them, so. Okay, so that leaves a greasy knuckle. And that right there was almost a whole can of brake cleaner. It goes fast. That's why I buy it by the case. I don't buy singles. So down in here, You can see the grease is a little lighter color. That's where moisture has been accumulating because of condensation. And once again, you know, like I've mentioned with hubs, if you live in an environment that has humidity, the more grease, the better to an extent. If you over-grease the knuckle, you blow the boot, like I said, but if you under-grease it, you're going to collect a lot of humidity, and humidity condensation ends up being a pool of water in your knuckle or inside of your hub, which starts to do this and contaminates the grease. So, ooh. Ugh, like fingering Bruce Jenner. Ugh, disgusting. Ugh. I know that's gonna make a lot of you puke. Hopefully you can finish the video though. Ugh. Where do I come up with this shit? Yeah, and there's really no other way to do this either. There's no clean way to clean these knuckles out. You don't want to get in here and try to wash this out with a steam cleaner, because then you're going to end up with this splattered all over you and everything else, and you're going to end up with an axle housing full of water. I'm sure someone has tried it. I haven't. I know better. But just, you know, fair warning. There is no faster way to do this. You've just got to scoop it out by hand, and it is what it is. Try to forget my last comment, you know, while you're doing it. I know that's going to ruin this job for some of y'all, but I found it funny. And you know what? I'm not going to edit it out either. Alright, so you get as much out as you can before you remove anything else, and then you remove the knuckle. Good idea to have a lot of paper shop towels around. And I use these because you definitely don't want to be using red rags and like trying to wash these in your wife's washing machine when you're done. Oh, I think she'd appreciate it. What I do is I take these when I'm done and I go put them on the fire pile with the pile of grease and burn it off. That way it's not in my trash can in the shop. I don't have to worry about spontaneous combustion burning my shop down later. You know, stuff like that. Oil-soaked rags, greasy rags, stuff like that, I always go and preemptively burn off, so I don't have to worry about a shop fire. It's just good practice. Alright, so now we're going to need our 7/8 socket and our 3/8 impact. And we're going to take off these top two nuts. Can you see that? No. Okay. The front top two. And your bottom front too. The top are nuts, the bottom are bolts. And then you can slide the bottom of your boot forward and the top of the boot up and on. Not a bad idea to clean that out while you got it off. Also not really critical at all either. Now this truck has zipper boots on it, which is really not awesome. That's why they're crap. I gotta move some of this stuff out of the way because I gotta get in. Beyond this point, you don't need your drip tray and all sitting here because it's just going to get crap on it that shouldn't be on it. So, kick some stuff out of the way here. We'll move you around kind of to the back side where you can see things better. Hopefully. Oh. Okay, so you see the zipper on the boot? Yeah, that's why the boots are trashed. The zipper boots never lasted. Even when everything was new and in service, they were kind of junk. So. Okay. Down here is your clamp. And it is a flat head screw on one side and a lock nut on the other. And you want to clean as much grease off as you can because it's very easy to strip it off. So it looks like the nut on this one is a 3/8, but sometimes it's a weird size, like 11/32 or 10 millimeters. So, now on the outer band, which is this one, it really doesn't matter so much where you put the clamp. Can you see that? Yeah, okay. You can't put it straight up because when you bolt the steering arm back on, what it'll do is it'll crush the clamping area right here with the loops on it, and then it'll pop your boot off, and then you have to do this all over again. So you want to put it either like down or partially down or straight out in the front or straight behind. Up here, you know, the boot guard protects it. So most people, including me, put it straight up front, not down like that. I put it straight in the middle. So let's see. Yeah, see, that's not 3/8. That's close, but damn it. It's probably going to be metric. So in that case, to save me a bunch of walking back and forth like an idiot, let me just get a crescent wrench. Because this is not a high torque application. But, damn it. I mean, you know, whoever idea it was to put a flathead screw on this needs to be slapped. I mean, they could have put an Allen, they could have put a Torx. Yeah, I mean, Torx, yeah, but it still would have been preferable to a flathead. Allen would have been great. Even Phillips, shit. Okay, let's see if that'll come off now. Yeah, ooh. That's a bunch of water. Yeah, that ain't brake cleaner. That was water. Got a lot of it. Condensation, gentlemen, condensation. And the inner boot clamp is not even clamped on. So, sweet. See your inner boot clamp there, just kind of hanging out? Yeah, sweet. Now, the new boot, or boots, because I'm doing both sides, but you're only going to see this one. I got new boots and clamps from Big Mike's, so I'm probably not going to reuse that. I may, if it's still good and the fastener's not screwed up, I can't tell. I may save that for possible future use on mine or charity job or whatever. Things aren't bad, I tend to not throw them away, which also makes me accumulate a lot of shit around here, but I don't think that's a problem that is restricted to only me. I think a lot of people do that, so. Take off our other top two nuts here. If we can get it to come out of the socket, that'd be great. Save your tab. On top of the bucket. Move the drip tray out of the way. Take the last bottom two kingpin bolts out. The bottom kingpin bolt and plate off. I don't know why it's got silicone all over it, because there's no need for that. Nothing ever called for that in a TM or anything. That's just somebody that didn't know. Okay, so now we've got to get the top steering arm off. We've got to get the top kingpin bushing and retainer out, and the bottom kingpin bushing and retainer out. So usually, and I know other people have had issues with this, so let me show you something. On top of the steering knuckle here, you see each stud has a split cone type wedge in there. And sometimes they can be really a bear to get out. I usually don't have an issue with them, but I want to show you how I attack it. 32-ounce ball peen on the side, that's it. See? Two of them shot out like a rocket. And two of them popped up out, and they're still there. So, there's number 3. Number 4 still wanting to hang on, so, screwdriver. Thread it off. There you go, that's 4. And now our steering arm will lift straight up. Well, okay, with this stupid air steering thing on here, the lines hit the frame, so you can't just lift it straight up, but you can turn it and get it out of the way. So, there. All right, so what that leaves is your top spacer. It's very important that it goes back in there. It goes on the top, not the bottom. So you want to put that over with your top kingpin retaining plate. And don't lose it. Now, if you look down here, you see the bottom kingpin bushing retaining plate is already starting to come out. So What we're going to do is tap the side of the knuckle flat. And as soon as it exposed an edge, you just put the screwdriver on it and hit it with your palm and it comes right down and off. Now these usually are marked top and bottom. Let's see if this one is. Yeah. All right. See right there, it's stamped bottom. Now you only want to do one side at a time, taking these apart, because you don't want to get the bottom of this side and the bottom of the other side mixed up. They'll probably fit, but they won't have the same wear pattern. So not that it's going to, or it would cause a huge problem, but it may result in decreased longevity of the parts. But when you have it apart, you want to look for obvious wear, flat spots, battering or whatnot in the bushing itself, because now is the time to replace the bushings if they need it. I will show you when we get this knuckle off to a way to check it. So let's see if the top one will come off similarly. Usually they will. Usually. All right. Clean this one up. Top and your Rockwell standard stamp. Same thing with the bushing, check it. Just inspect. Looks good to me. There's a little bit of galling in it, but nothing out of the ordinary. So that one's good. Now, the knuckle. The knuckle sometimes is really hard to finagle off. So it's got to be the very bottom. And there's a gap in the bottom of the knuckle that it can, the kingpin can slide out of. Where is it at the top? I can't remember right now. It's at the top. I'll show you that in a minute when I get it off. See that, how the kingpin's starting to go back through the slot? And like I said, it fits so tight that it's still a pain. So, and to top it off, you can't just hit the back of this thing with a hammer, because you'll break the lip that the boot clamps to. So, you can use a dead blow if you're careful. Clean out some of this grease around it. Usually it gets like this, pulling on it at the top, and usually doing that and hitting on the bottom will get it to come free, but you've also got to be careful not to hit the bolt holes, or the corner where the bolt holes are for the bottom of the king, the bottom kingpin bushing retainer. bottom of it in, get the top to come up a little further. If it doesn't just pop right back out like that. All right, that's all it needs, just a little bit. And yes, I usually do go through a whole roll of blue shop towels when I do this job, sometimes more. It depends on how nasty it is. This one's pretty bad. So this kind of stuff is why I keep a dead blow hammer around. Come on, man. The hell is it hanging up on? There we go. All right. Well, actually, that's pretty convenient. It's got that air assist cylinder on the tie rod, so it holds the knuckle up. Usually it just sits down on the ground. All right. What now? More cleaning. Hooray. I think what I am going to do here is I'm going to cut this right here, and I'm going to clean this up, and we will cut back in when I've got all of this nasty shit cleaned off and the old boot off. So we can continue from there. Actually, this is long enough. I'm going to cut this here. This is going to be the end of the teardown, because that's it. That's as far down as you got to go, other than taking the boot off. The next video will be putting it all back together, proper installation of the boot, lubrication, greasing, yada yada. So thank you for watching. Look for the next video soon. Be sure to check out our sponsors that we get our parts from, Big Mike's Motor Pool, listed in the description below. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, we'd sure appreciate it. You can find a link to our Patreon in the description below as well. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Later.